Welcome to Exceptional Talk with Dr. Clark. I really want you all to sit down, be ready, because you are about to hear a phenomenal woman. She is Miss Mildred Gaines. She is from Bronx, New York. She has three siblings, and I'm just going to allow her to talk a little bit more about herself. Because, guys, when I tell you that she has a story that can really help somebody. So, welcome, Miss Gaines. I am so happy. You know, I've been trying to get you on here for a minute now after we really
Yeah.
talked. So, thank you. So, tell us about yourself. Just tell us a little bit about
Yes, so most definitely. And thank you for having me, Dr.
it. Oh,
Clark.
absolutely.
You're an amazing, phenomenal woman yourself, and I just appreciate your time and talking with me.
Oh, thank you.
I really do. Well, I am originally a New York native from the South Bronx. I recently relocated to Georgia a few years ago, 2021, I believe. I come from a very large family. Prior to my three siblings from my mom and dad, I have six sisters outside of that. So um, we have a huge family. Growing up in the South Bronx humbled me a lot.
Okay.
It encouraged just want to be a better me. It encouraged my sisters and brothers as well. Um, it turned me into a well-rounded person. I try to be authentic in any way I could be. And from the Bronx to Georgia, I stand and I live in spite of.
Okay. When I tell you guys,
Yes.
not only the things that she's shared with you, she's also an educator and an awesome educator at that.
Yeah.
So I know she didn't mention
Absolutely.
that, but I thought I would do that. But there is
That was
a story that before you getting to that, I want you to talk a little bit about your organization, and then you can tell us why you began that organization and why it is so important to you. So first, you can talk about your organization, and then I would love for you to share with the audience, my viewers, because I know that it can help someone. So please.
Oh, absolutely. So, the name of my organization is called Live in Spite of. It's a group that I started as I was grieving the loss of my parents who passed away weeks apart from cancer. And prior to that, I had experienced a lot more grief, loss of grandparents, of uncles, having grown up in the Bronx, losing friends to violence. So this group I started around 2020 during COVID. So during COVID, it gave us a lot of time to think, right, and reflect on the past.
Absolutely.
And I have a very close spiritual relationship with my parents, and it's something I learned through grieving counseling. I went to therapy for a while after losing both my parents. It was a very traumatic experience for me. I was only 30. And as I shared my story with other people who have lost, we all had a similar reaction to how we reacted to grief and loss. There were reactions of abandonment, there were reactions of depression, of anxiety. So in New York, I worked as a mental health counselor. I also worked as a mental health treatment coordinator. And a lot of the people that were coming into my clinic had similar stories to me. And in addition to that, I was dealing with the IDD population. So, and they also had a story of grievance and loss. And I said to myself, I want to form a group. I want to form a group for those that are grieving like me, for all of us to just lay it on the table authentically and talk about our feelings and what grief has done to us, and those that are choosing to live in spite of loss, in spite of what has been done to them, whether it's divorce, whether it's domestic violence, whether it's um, losing someone to death. Anything that has left you, that has caused you pain, is grief.
Absolutely.
So we focus in the group just living in spite of what life may throw you that may cause mental decline, such as depression. It may cause anxiety. It may cause PTSD. Even veterans have joined that have lost fellow soldiers during the war. That's grief. So again, just live in spite of just focuses on mainly grievance and how it's caused anxiety and depression in losing loved ones.
Well, thank you. Well, we actually talked about this a little bit while at work because I actually lost my grandson a year or so ago, and I am a member of her organization, and I just cannot wait until I am in one of the group sections with the rest of them. But I wanted her to share her story because so many of us don't want to talk about what we're actually going through. And we as I always say, we suffer in silence, and that is just something we tend to do because in the Black culture, when it comes to anything mentally, we don't want to face it, or we don't want to discuss it, or we become ashamed of something that you should not be, because we all have something that we're dealing with, whether it's depression, anxiety, like you say, loss. And I like the
Right,
fact you mentioned that loss just not about dying, about death. Loss can be anything that is no longer a part of your life that
right.
causes you hurt or pain. So great. I loved it. I love it. So now share uh a little bit about something that you would like the audience to know, something that you really talk about. I don't want you to share anybody's secrets or I just want you to just talk to them, to let them know that you are here for them, what your organization has already done, and what it can definitely do. And then we're going to let you share how they can join, and then we go from there.
Okay, absolutely. So, something you want me to share about myself and what I've gone through.
Yes. No, no,
Okay.
no, no. What would you like to say to your audience as to how this organization has helped others? How can
Hmm.
they, what is, just kind of talk a little bit how the organization is helping others. Like I said, I don't want you to share anybody's story, but you can say,
Right. Right.
some success story, shall I say, some testimony,
Ab-
so that the people can see that it's needed, and it can be successful if you just apply yourself.
oh, absolutely. So, a couple of stories I have, and a lot of them actually deal with divorce. So, because I recently was divorced about a few years ago, and it was a group of us women that um, we would cry every night together on the phone and just talk about our heartbreaks and, how divorce can feel like death. And it's interesting because a few of us also lost our pets. And
Right.
that was devastating to me, dog down. And so what I would encourage them to do is go through the process of what you're dealing with. If you're sitting in a restaurant and you want to cry, cry. If you want to go see a movie by yourself and it was you and your husband's ex-husband's favorite movie, but that's still what you want to do, you go by yourself. And if you got to sit there and cry and go through the motions, you do that. And so I would call this just the process. Go through the process. We got to go through this process together.
Absolutely.
And sometimes with me like, oh, you make it sound so easy, blah blah. I said, well, if you're joining the group to live in spite of, this is what we got to do. If
Mhm.
you know your birthday is coming up, but you want to hide under the covers because you're depressed and you just want to cry all day, no, I'm going to encourage you to go out and celebrate your day. I'm going to encourage you to still continue to try and live in spite of. And the more I saw that, I saw just people in general, men and women, because men need healing too,
Absolutely.
going out and living in spite of experience, a bad experience they may be going through, even being laid off of your job. If you're laid off on Monday, but your favorite aunt is having brunch on Thursday and you were supposed to go with her, but I don't want to go because I've been laid off, or I'm going to encourage you to live in spite of those emotions real quick and go see your favorite aunt and continue to try your best to just go through the process as you enjoy the little things in life or the big things in life, the simple things in life. And so my success stories have been just seeing others enjoy life in spite of what they may be going through, but at the same time realize, yes, those emotions are still going to be there, but don't let them take over you.
Absolutely. Push through. Gotta just
Push through.
through. Yes. That is so great because one thing that I encourage, and I just had on one of my podcasts recently, I talked about the holidays and how it can become depressing, and I want people to understand that go and be with family. You tend to not want to be with family or anybody. So, you may just want to stay in your
Right.
bed. But this is the time when you have to push through. And like you say, in spite of what you're feeling, go and be around people. You're going to find yourself that you're going to enjoy it. But
Absolutely.
your mind has already defeated you by saying, "Oh, you don't need to go anywhere. You don't want to be around anybody
Right.
in this state of
Right.
mind." But your mind will
Right.
actually change once you around others and see how they are. And a lot of times we just don't want to really look at the fact that it's okay to feel the way you feel. We're not
It
saying
is
that you should not feel it. We're just saying
right.
that you don't want to wallow in it, and that's
You
a
know,
difference.
and I'm so glad you said that, Dr. Clark, because can I tell one more story? I have, and this,
Absolutely. Yes. As many stories as you want. Go ahead.
I, I promise it won't take too long. But
You're
my,
fine.
my mother, my mother passed away on Thanksgiving Day. Now, the day she passed away, I was so hopeful that she was going to make it. I said, she's going to come home for Thanksgiving. I had dinner ready, the family was there. And we said, the doctors were prior to Thanksgiving, they said, she should be ready to come home. But instead, I got a phone call from the hospital saying, you need to come down here. She's transitioning. Basically, she's passing away. So I left the dinner with my family there and I ran to the hospital and I had to take her off life support.
Oh my God.
Um,
Sorry to hear that.
on Thanksgiving Day, and I had a plate and everything because I thought she would be able to at least eat it, but they said no use for the plate. She has to go. So I let her go. And for years, I didn't celebrate Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving Day would come, the house would be dark. I would find some way to avoid
Yeah.
celebrating Thanksgiving for years. And I would celebrate around the holiday. And today I kind of still have a feeling when Thanksgiving comes, but I live in spite of it today because of what I've learned. But for years, I did not celebrate Thanksgiving. And for the past couple of years since I've been down here in Georgia, I celebrated it for the first time in 10 years with my family 2 years ago. And my mother passed in 2011. So I went a long time without celebrating a day called Thanksgiving. And if you think about Thanksgiving, my mother was a very thankful person, but I was doing the opposite. I was not celebrating her life.
Right.
I was misery and depression. And I said, God took her on Thanksgiving. I should be thankful that he lent her to me
There you
for
go.
those years. And I gave her back to him. And I said to myself, no, from now on, it's going to be a huge celebration every Thanksgiving
Mhm.
because that is living in spite of. And I just want to encourage those that have a significant story like mine to sometimes beat the odds and say, flip it, because depression could be very heavy and anxiety could be very heavy. And you have to go deep, dig deep within and just find the significance of why this happened to you
Mhm.
and why this happened to the person, and just live in spite of those emotions that can either take over you, but you have to make that decision to take over it. So I
Absolutely.
just wanted to share that story that Thanksgiving now is a blessing to me. Before it was
There you go.
depression, now
Okay. Well, I am so glad you shared that because I was going to ask what, how was the very first Thanksgiving that you decided to celebrate, but you answered it all. You answered all of my questions before I can even ask any. But I have to commend you on having the ability because everyone does not have the strength. And that
right.
is the thing that we do have to understand that we all at a different level of strength. And
Hmm.
it doesn't mean that you're incapable. It just means,
Right.
like you just said, you're going to have to dig down deep to just fight the emotions that trying to actually take you out. And that's what
Right.
it does. It takes you out of the people, it just takes you out from everything around you. It puts a shadow on your life when it is not easy, but it is a
Hmm.
journey. It is a fight. And you're going to have to dig down deep and want to live for the rest of your life in a whole different light. You don't want to live in
Right.
darkness. You want to have a light. And in order to do
Right.
that, you're going to have to believe that God is who He is. He's able to take you to the next level. And that is why it was so
Absolutely.
important to me to have you come on to really talk about and share your story because this is a lot of issues and concerns that we're
Yeah.
finding that people are dealing with. We just had recently last year we had a coworker that took his life. From bouts of depression. So
Right.
it's real. It's real. It's real to each one of us. So we're not saying that is
Right.
easy. You can just get up and just go and not deal with it. You still have to deal with the emotions, but you want
You
to
do.
deal with it differently. Your response needs
Yes.
to change. So that's
Right.
the most important part.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. I totally agree with that. And um everything you just said. And you spoke about the coworker that took his life, and
Mm,
that hit me because, and and we're having an authentic conversation.
absolutely.
And and with me with healing, I've learned to just be more authentic and more genuine in my story. And that's also what brought me to the light is, excuse Roxy, my Yorkie in the background, is experience. And I know I haven't shared this with a lot of people, and I'm sharing it with you, a suicide attempt. I took myself to the ER, and this was after I had taken a certain amount of pills,
Oh,
but
wow.
I didn't want to lose my life. I thought about what I had done.
Mhm. In time.
In time, I said,
Yes.
I said, I just tried to take my life. I said, I have to drive myself to the ER. And thank God I did, because I had to get pumped out. I
Mhm.
had to get all of that out of me. And because it was a suicide attempt, they had to hold me for 48 hours.
Mhm.
But through that process, I was able to get the help that I needed. The social worker there was able to find me a good therapist.
Mhm.
And I have and because I was 29 years old, having experienced all of that loss.
Yes.
And um, at the moment, I had no parents, I
Mhm.
had no grandparents. Um, I had my own personal health issues I was going through. Um, I had no job because I lost my job taking care of my parents.
Right.
Um, because I was taking my mom to chemotherapy, my dad to chemotherapy, and so I had lost my mental in that state. So I I had to resign from that job. And during my process of resignation, they had to let me go because I wasn't mentally equipped to do the job. So there was a lot happening in that one time. So my only solution was, if I'm not here, I don't have to go through it. But that's where the darkness can take you. But
Absolutely.
today, like you said, to find that light.
Yes, you
And
have
you,
to. Yeah. And
right. And,
you lost yourself in
right.
of you helping everybody else. And
Right.
that is one of the most, shall I say,
Right.
things that happen for
Mm,
doing caretaking, because we
right.
become so dependent on making sure that our significant other or our loved ones are okay. But
Mm-hmm.
you're not okay because you're dealing with all of the everything that you're dealing with is hurt, is anger, it's pain.
Mm-hmm.
You're
That's
suppressing
right.
it because you don't want them to see it or feel it or know it. So you end
Right.
up keeping it. That's that suffering in silence. That's what put us in a
That's
depressive state, because you're not dealing with it, you're not talking about it, you're not sharing it
right.
with anybody else. So
Right.
you keep it. And
Right.
while you're keeping it there, and every time you keep going through another emotion, now you
Mm-hmm.
add it to that emotion that you didn't deal with before. All right, now here we go with another one. We're piling them on. So
That's
just like
right.
anything else, if it gets to a certain point, it's going to erupt. So
That's right.
you had gotten to a point where you felt that something had to give. And your
Mm-hmm.
mindset said, if I'm no longer here, I don't have to
Right.
worry about it.
That's
But
right.
thank God that you woke up in the moment in which you did, because you could have not been able to even drive yourself to the emergency room. You could have not even been
Right.
enough to do that. But again, God held you, and
Mm-hmm.
he kept you long enough for you
Absolutely.
to get there to get some help. So you are definitely a testimony for those who even think about it. Just
Right.
know that that is not the end of your life. You have another day. If you just allow yourself to wake up the next day, now you have
That's
another
right.
opportunity to get it right.
Mm-hmm.
But if you
There's
let
always
it all go,
that's right.
you know, so thank God.
And thank God.
Yeah,
And there's always the opportunity, and that's where Live in Spite of comes from. There always being another
another
opportunity.
opportunity. Absolutely. Yes. You
You know,
just gotta
and
you just gotta believe it. That's the
right,
part. You're going to have
right.
to dig down deep enough to
You
believe
have
that I am going to be okay.
that's right. And also give yourself props. Acknowledge your steps every day. If you woke up in the morning and say, good job. If your
Yeah,
feet touches the floor,
yes,
great job. You
yes,
asked them to brush your, oh my gosh, I'm doing it.
yes.
The
Be
person
grateful.
that's the that.
Yeah,
Encourage yourself before you get to the big things. You make it to work, have a celebration, have a cup of coffee and say, praise God.
yes, yes. Because if you thank him and praise him for the small things, oh my God, can you imagine? Like you said, when those big things happen, you're gonna
Right.
really praise. So
Right.
it's about just the little things.
That's right. It's the little things. And that's what got me to Georgia, because I literally came here not knowing where I was going to work, where I was going to live. I said, "Oh my goodness, I can't teach." I didn't know, but I said, God knows why I'm doing this.
Yes,
And
yes,
I, like you said, I had to find that light and say, okay, in a room full of darkness, I had my one candle, and I said, I'm gonna find it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to find a way. And people will look, you crazy, you moving down south. Oh, I said, this is my journey. I'm
Yes.
in alignment. I'm in
Yes.
alignment with him. I trust what he's doing. When you're in alignment with him,
Yes.
you can trust. You know what he's
Girl,
doing.
let me tell you about alignment now. I did one of my podcasts on alignment too. So I'm a true believer that you going to have to
Absolutely.
align yourself with God. Once
That's
you do
right.
that, everything is possible. Everything,
Right.
you know,
Absolutely.
and that's the most phenomenal word you could have said is alignment. I
Align.
talked about how we're in a state of in which we are because we're out of alignment. You know, we're not our government is not in alignment. We have a Republican and a Democrat, they're not one,
Right.
you know.
Yes.
So
Yes.
everywhere you look, we're not aligned,
Yes.
you know. So
Yes.
until we all get together and do
Mhm.
what God has ordained everyone to do is to love one
Absolutely.
another. The greatest of
Absolutely.
all is to love. If when we can learn to love, but it's so
You can do it.
sad because a lot of people don't know how.
And I want to piggyback right off of what you said, but being ordained. Um, Prior to working for mental health, I was working in media. And I remember this was before I experienced grief or anything. It was all about me. And I said I was working for a news station, but something deep inside said, this isn't me. But I wanted to do it for the superficial aspect of it. It
Mhm.
sounds good, look good. One day, my manager, and this is when I knew I wasn't in alignment with God. My manager called me into his office and he said, "You're laid off."
Oh wow.
I said, "What did I do?" He said, "You can't keep up with the flow."
Interesting.
And I said, "I can't keep up with the flow." So, when my mother was still alive, I went to her and I said, "Why would they fire me?" And she said, "Millie, this is not what you're supposed to be doing. You're
Absolutely.
not in alignment.
Yeah.
You're not in alignment with him." And after that, she got sick. But I got upset. I said, "I am in alignment. I went to school for this. I did blah, 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 blah. You
But
not
you did
listening."
not understand the meaning
Right.
of alignment.
That's right.
Yeah.
I, I didn't understand the meaning. I just knew what I wanted to do.
You're right.
I said, this
Right.
is what I, but I had to listen. And God was like, that's not what I want you to do. I have people I need you to love,
That's it.
not you. I need you to love them. I need
Yes.
to love them back to good health. I need you to love them through their experiences, through the processes that they're going to need to go through. I said, I don't want to do that. He said, well, then you're going to keep getting fired and laid off. And you need to survive.
Right, right.
I said, really? So I went back to school for mental health and behavioral therapy, and I have not looked back since.
Yes.
And it's interesting because right after that is when I started experiencing all of the grief.
Yeah. And that's exactly how it happens. When
Mm-hmm.
you when you get where you're supposed to be, where you're destined to go, of course you know that other over there, I'm not going to give it no name, is not going to want you to get where you need to go.
Right.
But life is life. And
That's
we are just going to have to learn how to deal with life. It's not going to always be peaches and cream. And that's
right.
the part we don't understand because we expect it to always be good.
Right.
When you
Right.
already know that it's not going to always be good, then
Mm-hmm.
your response is going to already be ready. It's
Right.
just like preparing yourself for life.
That's
When I
right.
teach my students, I try to prepare them not just for academics, but for their life, for the rest of their life. Because I
Absolutely.
constantly tell them when you walk out of that door, the same
Right.
people that you have inside this building will not be the same people outside in that world.
Right.
They're not
Absolutely.
going to care.
No, no, they're not as much as you.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
not in your mind.
Right. They're not going to care. They absolutely not, you know, but
And
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. You're
ab-
going to help so many people because of
ab-
the fact that God, and when I say ordained, a lot of people think about ministers,
mhm.
evangelists. All of us have a calling on our life.
Oh, absolutely. We
You
do.
know, it's just you're being able to tap into what your calling is. And if you be obedient and pay attention, God will send you right where you're supposed to go.
Oh, absolutely. And you will at first we may not know. We may be like, why me? And this is what the Son of God went through. He said, why me?
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
need to, you know, and so I I just love this conversation that we're having because it's the truth.
It's the truth.
It,
And what we're going to do, I'm going to have a part two. Gentlemen, ladies, everybody out there, you do not want to miss part two. As you have just heard part one, this lady is so passionate about loving others, loving people, helping people. She's a service leader. She just is. So we're going to stop right here and come back with part two, Exceptional Talk with Dr. Clark.